Okay. You know how sometimes you're just cruising along in life, feeling pretty good, and then bam,
Aha, yeah.
you get hit with something totally unexpected. Like, you picture a video game
Huh?
and you're going through feeling invincible. Then suddenly you've got this boss battle you weren't ready for at all.
Oh, yeah, totally. Life can be a lot like that.
Except instead of, dragons or whatever, the
Mm.
boss battles are like your furnace breaking in the middle of winter.
Oh, for sure. Or maybe a sudden job loss. Things you just don't see coming.
And that's where, from what I'm reading, this idea of an emergency fund comes in. Like, it's your financial power up.
Precisely. It's that shield to protect you from those curveballs.
Speaking of which, you send over some really interesting articles all about building this financial safety net, right?
Yeah, thought it'd be timely.
And what struck me is it's not just about the practical side, like having the money when you need it, but also they all talked about peace of mind.
Oh, absolutely. Huge part of it. It's that feeling of knowing you've got a cushion if things go south.
Like less stress, less anxiety, knowing you can handle stuff.
Imagine, right, you've got a few months of expenses saved up.
Just that knowledge.
Makes a world of difference to how you sleep at night, knowing you can face whatever comes up.
Right, like in the video game, you still might take damage, but you're not game over,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah.
Now, all these articles, they agreed on having the emergency fund, but they also got into the specifics of how much to save.
Uh-huh, the nitty-gritty, yeah.
And they generally said like 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses is what you should be aiming for.
That's the ballpark, yeah. Good starting point, at least.
But I can imagine for some people, hearing 3 to 6 months, that can sound scary.
It can. But the thing is, it's not about suddenly having this huge lump sum, you know?
Right, more like building it up over time.
Exactly. It's a gradual thing. Consistency over time is what makes it work.
So say my essential expenses, rent, food, the must-haves, come to about $2,000 a month. We're talking like $6,000 to $12,000 in this emergency fund then?
Yeah, that's a solid goal to work towards.
Mm.
But of course, it's not one size fits all, is it?
Right, everyone's different.
Someone with less stable income or expenses, they might want to be closer to that higher end.
Makes sense.
Someone super stable, low expenses, maybe a bit less, is okay. But that range is a good guideline to start from.
All right, so we've got the why down, how much to save, but what about the where?
Ah, yes.
I'm guessing stuffing cash under the mattress isn't the best move. What are some of the mistakes people make when they're choosing where to keep this money?
Well, the mattress strategy, it has a certain old school charm, I'll give it that,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
but not exactly the most financially savvy approach, right?
Yeah.
You want that money accessible, but also working for you somewhat.
Right, right.
One option that popped up a lot in the articles was the high-yield savings account.
Okay, so basically, I'm earning more interest than my regular savings account. But how much of a difference does that actually make?
It can be significant, especially these days when interest rates are going up.
Huh.
See, these high-yield accounts, they're often from online banks, lower overhead, so they can offer better rates.
Makes sense. To attract customers.
Exactly. But now, you bring up a good point. Wouldn't inflation eat away at those gains anyway?
Yeah, that was my...
It's definitely a factor, yeah. But the interest you earn, it helps offset some of that erosion from inflation.
Okay, so it might not totally beat inflation.
Right. But it helps.
Mm.
The key is finding an account that at least matches the current inflation rate, if not beats it.
All right, good to know. And the articles also mentioned money market accounts as another option.
Those came up too.
What's the difference between those and the high yield savings? They sound kind of similar.
They are, yeah. But there are some subtle differences.
Oh, okay.
Money market accounts, sometimes they have slightly higher interest.
Oh, interesting.
But they might also come with some strings attached.
Like,
Limited transactions per month, sometimes. Or the interest rate can fluctuate. You know, it's not always fixed.
so both are good options for an emergency fund.
Definitely, yeah. Safer than under your mattress.
Uh-huh, for sure. But I gotta ask, because I know some people might be thinking this, why not just invest that money
Ah, I see where you're going.
instead of it sitting in savings, right? Because investing is how you really grow wealth long term, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. Investing is key for long-term growth.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
The articles made a really good point about why investing your emergency fund isn't the best strategy. The main reason, market volatility.
Okay, yeah.
You need that emergency money available immediately when something happens. And you don't want to be forced to sell investments at a loss.
Because if the market's down when you have an emergency.
Exactly. You
Uh,
could end up losing money by selling to cover the expense.
Hmm.
Defeats the whole purpose.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Your emergency fund, it needs to be reliable, predictable. Investing is great for long term, but it doesn't have that same stability and quick access.
All right. So we've covered the why, how much, the where to keep it. But for someone starting from scratch, any tips on actually building this fund?
Yeah, good question.
I gotta admit, saving thousands of dollars can feel a bit daunting.
I hear you. It can seem like a mountain, right?
Yeah, like a bit overwhelming.
But one of the articles had some great advice. First and foremost, start small.
Smart.
Even if it's just like $25, $50 a week. Those little bits add up over time. It's like those little gold coins you collect in a game.
Haha, right. They seem tiny at first.
But they build up into a huge treasure eventually.
No, it's more about creating that consistent habit than trying to make big sacrifices right away.
That's it. Consistency is key. Another great tip was automate your savings.
Automate.
Like set it up so it happens automatically.
Yeah.
Like passive income in the video game. You set it up once, it just keeps generating.
Oh, right. I get you.
In real life, this means automatic transfer from your checking to savings each payday.
Set it and forget it, huh?
Exactly. Takes the willpower out of it. It just
Yeah.
happens. Another tip, treat your emergency fund savings like a bill.
A bill, like as important as rent or utilities?
That's the idea. Prioritize it in your budget. And don't forget about those unexpected windfalls,
Falls.
like tax refunds, bonuses, gifts.
Oh, like finding a treasure chest in the game.
Exactly. Those can give your savings a nice boost. Any extra money that comes your way, boom, straight to the emergency fund.
Smart. So we've got the why, the how much, where to keep it, even tips on getting started.
We're well on our way to building that financial fortress, right?
Feeling more prepared for those boss battles already.
Exactly. And, what's interesting is the articles also talked about how an emergency fund isn't just about the practical side.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not just about having the money there when you need it. It's also about, I don't know, like empowering yourself in a way.
Empowering.
It's about taking control, of your finances, feeling confident that you can handle whatever life throws at you.
Oh, I get that. Like instead of feeling helpless when something bad happens, you're like, okay, I got this.
Exactly. And that can ripple out into other areas of your life too, When you feel financially secure, you're more likely to take risks, go after opportunities, just live with more intention.
It's almost like unlocking a new level in the video game, right? Suddenly you've got more options, more things you can do.
Exactly. And those experiences, they can really enrich your life in ways you wouldn't have thought of.
So we've been talking about this whole thing like leveling up our finances, equipping ourselves for those boss battles.
And just like in the game, right? Having that emergency fund, it can make the difference between winning and, well, getting knocked down a few levels.
I like that analogy. It makes it all seem a bit more exciting, like we're on this quest together.
Uh-huh. That's the spirit. And like any good quest, there's going to be challenges along the way. But with the right strategies, a bit of persistence,
We can overcome them.
and reach those financial goals.
So just to recap for a sec, we've talked about WHY. An emergency fund is so important.
Uh-huh.
How to figure out how MUCH to save based on your own situation, right? And smart places to stash that cash so it's safe but also working for you.
And we busted that myth about investing your emergency fund.
Uh-huh. Yeah, market volatility is no joke. You need that money available right now when something happens.
Exactly. No waiting around for the market to recover. And we even went over some practical tips to get started, like starting small, those consistent contributions.
Right, like even $20 a week makes a difference.
Huge difference over time. And automating your savings so it's effortless.
Set it and forget it. Love that.
And treating that emergency fund like a non-negotiable bill.
Putting our financial well-being first, just like we wouldn't skip paying rent.
Right. Making it a priority. It's like we've mapped out the entire quest, haven't we?
Yeah.
From gathering those initial resources to getting the tools and skills we need along the way.
And just like any good adventurer, it's important to check our progress, right? Adjust our strategy if needed.
And celebrate those milestones along the way, reaching each new goal.
Speaking of milestones, one thing that came up in the articles was sometimes the hardest part is just getting started.
Oh, absolutely. I hear that a lot. It can feel so overwhelming, like, where do I even begin?
Right, it's like staring down that huge boss at the beginning of the game. It's intimidating.
And just like facing that boss, the key is break it down into smaller steps, right?
Yeah.
Instead of focusing on the entire amount you want to save, start with a small, achievable goal.
Okay, so like instead of thinking I need $10,000, I could start with what?
Even $10 or $20 a week, that's doable, right? And it creates momentum. You get that feeling of, hey, I'm doing this.
It's like leveling up your saving skills one step at a time.
Exactly. And as you get more experience, more confident.
You can gradually increase how much you save.
Exactly. Progress over perfection. That's the motto here.
I like that. So it's not about being perfect. It's about just doing something and building from there.
That's it. And that motivation, that feeling of progress, it's key. Because building this emergency fund, it's a journey, not a sprint.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And there are going to be times, where you're tempted to dip into those savings for something that's not an emergency.
Now, yeah, I can see that happening.
But it's like resisting the urge to spend all your gold on those fancy but useless items in the game. Got to stay focused on the long-term goal.
Because ultimately, having that emergency fund, it gives you this financial security, freedom, that's priceless.
Exactly. It's about being prepared for those tough times, knowing you can handle them without derailing your whole financial plan or getting stuck in debt.
So before we wrap up today's deep dive, there was one more thing in the articles that really resonated with me. So before we wrap up today's deep dive, there was one more thing in the articles that really resonated with me. They talked about how having an emergency fund, it isn't just about the practicalities, the numbers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
What else did they say?
It's also about kind of empowering yourself,
Empowering, yeah. I like that.
Like taking control of your finances, feeling confident that no matter what life throws at you, you can handle it.
That's a really great point. It's about that feeling of security, of knowing you've got your own back financially.
All right, so we've talked about all the strategies, the whys and the hows of building this financial safety net. But before we finish up, I want to put you through a little simulation, like a mini boss battle, if you will.
All right, bring it on. Let's see what I've learned.
Okay, close your eyes for a sec. Imagine this. You're going about your day, feeling pretty good about your money situation, and then, bam! Life hits you with an unexpected expense.
Uh-oh.
Maybe your car breaks down, needs a new transmission, or your fridge suddenly decides to stop working, or a medical bill comes in, way higher than you thought.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you. Those are definitely stressful situations.
And let's say this expense, it's $1,000, something you absolutely have to cover.
Okay, I'm feeling the pressure already.
Right. So here's the question. How would that $1,000 expense impact you right now? Would you be able to handle it? No sweat, knowing you've got that emergency fund ready to go?
Yeah.
Or would it throw your whole budget off track? Maybe force you to rely on credit cards or dip into savings that were meant for something else?
That's such a good question to think about. It really makes you realize the difference between feeling financially secure and feeling vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. And for a lot of people, that $1,000, it could be the difference between staying afloat and falling behind.
It could.
Between feeling in control of your money and feeling like you're constantly struggling.
And that's exactly why building this emergency fund is so important. It gives you that breathing room, that sense of, okay, I can handle this.
Like having that secret weapon, that hidden power up to face those boss battles with confidence.
Exactly.
So whether you're just starting out or you've already got a good chunk of savings built up, keep that momentum going. Even if you can only save a small amount each week, it all adds up.
Every little bit helps.
It's about taking that step, making that commitment to yourself, to your financial well-being.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. There are resources out there, people who can help. Financial advisors, online communities, even just talking to a friend who's good with money.
Right. It's about finding the support you need. And I think that's a great place to wrap up our deep dive today.
Yeah, I agree.
Hopefully this has given you not just the knowledge, but also the motivation to start building your own financial safety net.
To go out there and conquer those financial challenges.
And until next time, happy saving. May all your financial adventures be filled with treasure and triumph.